All right, guys, it's that time of the week. We have on tap the week 4 power rankings. This is going to be a total excitement type of power rankings where we're going to dive in. This is one of the weirder seasons I think we've had. There's really, at the middle of the pack, just basically every single team has a lot of concerns, I think, at this point, besides maybe the top 2 or 3 teams in the league right now. So we've got a lot to cover, and we're going to jump right into it with our number 14 team. And this is going to create some controversy, but I'm doing it anyway. We have, at number 14, standing on bullshit, Pablo. And that's right, I said it, standing on bullshit. Now, you came into this offseason talking about how you were standing on business and all this fluff material that you were trying to shove down our throats about how you were taking it seriously, and then we get to week 4 and you've made 0 roster moves on this season. That's a complete embarrassment. Your receiving core is dog shit. You have absolutely nothing to go on at the receiver position. You've got several lucrative targets. You could pick up Josh Downs, you could pick up Dontavian Wicks, you could pick up Dobbs, you could pick up a ton of different options that would all be better than continuing to start Calvin Ridley, who is just clearly not going to do anything. You have no receivers inside the top 35 on your roster right now, which is insane. And yet you make no roster moves again. You're just clinging on to this top waiver wire spot. What an embarrassment. You're demoted in the rankings because you're not standing on business. You're standing on bullshit, and that's what you're going to be referred to as in these rankings every single week from here on out. If by some miracle I lose to you this week, I will be so embarrassed. I might never make a power ranking video ever again. You totally choked last week against Nibs, whose team is completely banged up. The amazing thing about your team is, other than Joe Mixon, you've had no injuries to really complain about. Just a total shit show and an embarrassment. Speaking of shit shows and embarrassments, we've got JoJo at number 13. I don't really think I need to rehash this too much. JoJo did actually have an above average performance by his standards, but he's still last in the league in scoring, still has not won a game yet. The Dolphins offense is not going to get better. There's really no hope for this team to improve whatsoever. So stuck down there at number 13. Number 12, we have the herd mentality. Nibs, congratulations. You're about to hit a major personal milestone, and we're all happy for you. I'm very happy and thrilled and so excited. But with that being said, you don't get any pity or sympathy when it comes to the fantasy football power rankings. The reality is your team is still bad. You are banking on the fact that Trey Sermon might be healthy enough to play this week. That would actually be a big game changer for you if you could get Sermon. You've got Brennan this week, who's looking very strong. He's looking like a juggernaut right now after last week. So it's do or die for you right now, but I have to put you at 12 with this roster. It's just a lot of weaknesses. Brandon Ayuk hasn't shown anything. That's really one of your biggest weaknesses, and obviously your running backs are pretty bad as well. Moving on to the number 11 spot. I hate to do it, but I have to. CTESPN with Barkley on bye this week. Your team just looks pretty toothless right now, unfortunately. Now, I think when you get Barkley back, you might also get Kupp back around the same time. And Nick Chubb, big news, he has now opened his 3-week practice window. So if you get him back anytime soon, it's a major improvement. You're just going to have to wait on it. I think getting Tank Bigsby was a smart move this week. Tank Bigsby has definitely outplayed Travis Etienne so far. That could be a major step up. The one thing I think Keenan Allen, I don't even know what the viability of this Bears passing game is right now. You're going to have to seriously take a look at replacing him. Quentin Johnston, at this point, we have health concerns about the quarterback position there. So there's still not quite enough strength on this team for me to rank it higher, but I think you're playing a waiting game and just trying to go on a run down the stretch. Frankly, there's not a lot of difference between this 11 and 6 even in terms of quality of roster. There's just a kind of a dearth of talent with all the injuries that have happened so far on this season. Moving on to number 10, this is a team, look out for this team. All of a sudden, Jake Smith and I Love Cars goes off this week. And when you look at the roster with all the injuries that have happened, he had the injury bug early with Jordan Love and Kenneth Walker going down. If Kenneth Walker stays healthy, that guy is a highlight reel machine. Now, I never really loved to talk up the Seahawks very much, but Kenneth Walker is just a highlight reel machine. I loved him coming out of Michigan State. He actually was probably bad for Michigan State. He did so well that they hired dumbass Mel Tucker, basically based off of what he did, and ended up screwing their franchise. But things that were looking like a weakness early are suddenly looking more like a strength. Jamar Chase, that Bengals offense is starting to get on a roll. Terry McLaurin is now very viable with the way Jaden Daniels is throwing the football. So I think you could plug him as a high-end flex. Tony Pollard quietly has just had a very solid RB2 season. I was actually kind of identifying that as a weakness, but the fact that they can't throw the ball with any type of consistency gives him a lot of viability going forward. Overall, I think Jake, with how little talent is happening in this mid-tier, I've got him 10 this week, but I mean, I could see him jumping up to 6, as high as 6, which just sounds crazy, but he's got other Pablo, JoJo this week. Should be a victory for him, and then who knows, he's moving up. He could be, there's just nobody besides maybe a couple of these bottom teams that you can rule out at this point, given how the season is shaken out so far. Moving on further into the top 10, we've got Catch Me on Cod, Nate Solly with one of the ultimate choke jobs. Solly down at 1-3. Now, I give him a little bit of leeway here, but last week was just an utter disaster with Kyler Murray going down, and he's number 9 here. That's contingent on Jonathan Taylor playing. If Jonathan Taylor is out this week, and I think that there's a decent chance that he will be, without Jonathan Taylor, you take him out of your team, you've got like a bottom 5 roster in the league, and that would actually open the door for AJ this week. If Jonathan Taylor goes down and isn't able to play, AJ versus Solly becomes maybe the most interesting matchup of the week. If you get something out of Taylor, you should be fine. But when you look at this team, what really kills you is the Chase Steele experiment. It was a heartwarming story for 1 week. If you play Rico Dowdle, who was a much less risky proposition, you actually win. So that was kind of a coaching mistake, I think, trusting a rookie like Carson Steele, who just, you look at him on the field, he's not that talented, unfortunately, and he fumbles a lot. So with that being said, you're at number 9. AJ will probably be salty. What I will say is that you and AJ take Taylor out of your lineup if he's not playing this week. Your rosters are essentially almost the same, given that case. Worthy, do I think he's got more upside with Rashee Rice out? Maybe only slightly. I just not a super big believer in Worthy from a fantasy perspective. I think he's a nice player to have on your real life team, but I don't like him in fantasy because he's too inconsistent. Moving on to the number 8 spot, we have Almost Bedtime. Amazing that this roster is at number 8. You keep kind of rolling forward with these wins. You score in the mid 80s and get a victory. Basically Geno Smith is your best player right now on your team. ETN has got bust potential big time. He might lose his job to Tank Bigsby. You have to keep an eye on that. DJ Moore and Amari Cooper, your 2 starting wide receivers are in terrible passing offenses right now. Just not a good situation for your team. With A.J. Brown out and David Montgomery on the bye, and no longer being able to milk Charbonnet for some cheap points in your flex, your roster looks very toothless. You and Boston kind of fighting it out. If you somehow manage to overcome Boston season's looking in big trouble. But Boston will be looking to get back on track and get his team back into the winning column for the first time since week 2. With that being said, Lester, your team's roster is looking really suspicious. That just kind of shows the state of the league right now, as you're just barely ahead of some of these other